Auburn has an X factor on the defensive line, but how are they going to use him?
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. Happy Tuesday as we continue our walk through the Auburn roster headed into spring. We're less than a week away from spring practice kicking off. Today, we're going to talk about the defensive line and minus the pass rushing specialists. We're just going to talk about some of the big uglies, those guys that are going to be setting the point against the run. They're going to be a little bit rushing the passer, NFL prospects, and then obviously the X factor that we're going to get into in just a second. But before we get started, I want to give it a shout out to mybookie.ag. We're back with MyBookie. Use coupon code BARN. Get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. So whatever you give them, they're going to give you 50% of that back in free play just for using the coupon code BARN. You also get a $10 poker chip for the casino. A lot of fun. You need to get that account set up for NCAA March Madness, SEC Tournament Madness, tons of basketball going on. And then obviously you got all the other sports as well and the sports book that you can have fun with. Check them out, mybookie.ag. I think Auburn's got an X factor this year on the defensive line, and they've got to figure out a way to use him. And that X factor is Amaris Williams. He was one of the highest rated members of that 2024 class, that sort of surprise flip late in the year that kind of came out of nowhere. Just a physical freak. Came in last year, did not get a ton of snaps. I mean, let's just be honest. He was it's hard to it's hard to find a role when you're behind one of the better defenders in college football, and that's Keldric Faulk. But the times that he did get on the field, he played really well. He's one of the highest graded defenders from Pro Football Focus, PFF. He got a lot more snaps in games like Vanderbilt, where he played phenomenal. I thought he and DeMarcus Riddick had some really good plays together on the field in that game. He played really, really well in that game. Played a lot in the Louisiana Monroe game as well, and also had a big game. Those were some of his highest rated games of the season. You spent a lot of effort to retain him. I mean, remember, this guy was going in the portal. And it's hard not to blame him. Not that anybody did anything wrong. Not that he was mistreated, or not that we dropped the ball. I mean, if you look at it, hey, I'm behind an NFL player for a whole nother year. So I'm going to have to sit for basically 2 years before I actually get a shot. I mean, I think I'm good enough to be a starter elsewhere. I may want to, test the waters. Bill Belichick just got hired at North Carolina. That's where I'm from. I mean, I may want to give him a shout. That's kind of exciting, but totally understandable on his part. Completely understandable. But they spent so much effort. They prioritized him as hey, this is foundational depth. I talk a lot about depth versus foundational depth. Depth is just warm bodies. Foundational depth is a warm body that you're depending on in the future, that you have a plan for in the future to be that guy, to be that dude, to be that Keldrick Faulk. And I think Amarus Williams fits that role. He is extremely gifted athletically. Played running back in high school, obviously played defensive end, pass rush. He's 6'2", 6'3", 260 pounds, but just super long and just a really, really good athlete. And I think he could be the X factor of this defensive line. I really, truly believe that. I feel like there has to be a way to figure out to get him on the field. There's got to be ways to figure out how to get him on the field more. I think he had a little bit over 100 snaps total last year, 119 total snaps last year. That's got to get up. That's got to get way up. Again, he played sparingly throughout the season. I think he got his most snaps actually in the first game, which against Alabama A&M, which is understandable. But played a few snaps against Vanderbilt, graded out really high. Played a few snaps against Louisiana Monroe, graded really high. Got to get him more. Got to get this kid on the field. I know that the way the alignment and the way we typically run out there, you got 3 down linemen. You're going to have Keldrick Faulk's going to be one of those. Just you can't take him off the field. And you're going to have a bigger guy in the middle, and that leaves very little opportunity on that other side. Because you can't just go 100%. You can't just go, to me, you can't go Keldrick Faulk on one side, Amaris on the other, because you got to have girth. You got to have some beef out there. Yeah, these guys are great athletes. Yeah, these guys can rush the passer, but I mean, when you're only 260, 270 pounds and you only have 3 down linemen, that could present some challenges. Now, DJ Durkin has shown at times, I know he typically likes to go with that 3-man front, but he has shown times in the past where he's run a 4-man front. And to me, that's where Amaris comes into play. That's where I feel like Amaris can make some hay. And there can be some sets, there can be some formations to where you maybe have Keldrick Faulk on one side, Dallas Walker, like a Malik Blocton or Zykevious Walker, somebody like that, those two in the middle, and then you put Amaris on the other side, and you have a more traditional, maybe like a 4-3 or 4-2-5 type alignment. Regardless, this kid is a freak. You got to get him on the field. He's giving you another shot. He's giving you another shot. You got to figure it out. I think he could unlock a potential of this defensive line from a pass rush perspective. You can be such a good defense if you can only rush 4 and get to the quarterback. And when you got Keldrick Faulk on the field and you got Amarus Williams on the field at the same time, coupled in with some of these other pass rushing buck guys that we have, Jourdin Crawford, those type guys, when you can rush 4 and get to the quarterback, you can be a dominating defense. And I think Amarus Williams can help take that defensive line to the next level. And he can also spell Keldrick Faulk at times, but I think he needs to have a bigger role than that. I think Amarus Williams is definitely my X factor on the defensive line this year. Before we jump into our the anchor, the guy, the alpha of the group, we got to give a shout out to the alpha of salsas, and that is Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. Use coupon code TheBarn25 to take 25% off. Go to UncleKeith'sRedSauce.com. Save big if you live in Alabama. You go to any Publix in the state. If you live in Birmingham, you can go to the Publix's, and you can also go to Piggly Wiggly's, wherever. If you don't live close to either one of those, definitely check out the online store. Auburn family, show them some love, show them some support. Locally made, locally shipped. UncleKeith'sRedSauce.com. It's good, y'all. The alpha this year. Maybe the alpha of the whole team. Auburn, in my opinion, Auburn's top NFL prospect going into the season is Keldrick Faulk. This kid's impressive. He's impressive on the field. He's impressive off the field. He's impressive just getting off the bus, and he has been that way since he was a true freshman. Came in ready to play. Took a much bigger role last year. This year, he's going to be the guy that I think makes the defense go. I think he's one of those catalyst guys that can make a whole side of the ball function. As long as he's healthy with his motor, I think he is going to be huge for this defense. Huge for this defense. And this is the year where he can really make an impact and really explode up NFL hot boards. I think he's already on the radar as one of the top picks of the draft next year. As far as guys you're just kind of watching, hey, this could be one of the top guys. He's going to have a big year. He's slimmed down, more speed, hopefully. little bit more agility. I thought at times last year he looked too big, even though it didn't seem to really affect his play. He can just flip a switch. Not many guys can do this. And the question is, why can't you do it all the time? But he can flip a switch, and he can just take over. And there were times last year where he had to do that. I know we lost the game, but I can think of the Cal game whenever, we're reeling a little bit and needing a play, and he has 2 straight possessions where he has a sack and a tackle for loss, just back-to-back plays. He can end a drive on his own. He's done it. And I think you're going to see much more of that this year. It's big for him to be successful because he was Hugh's first 5-star that he flipped at the last minute when he was hired in his half class, that I call it. Big to have those guys hit. It's big to have those guys not just get them, but then have them hit and be as good and be as productive, because that shows proof of concept. That shows, hey, I'm a 5-star. I can go to Auburn and have just as much success as I can anywhere else. He's worth every penny. Can he be that true game wrecker? I think he's a game changer. Can he be that game wrecker for another year? Can he take that next step to where it's not just, hey, I'm going to flip the switch when I need to? Instead, it's, hey, they got to know where I am on the field at all times because I'm coming. I'm coming for you. Want to see a little bit of a mean streak. He's a super nice guy. Want to see maybe some personal foul penalties. Get a little rough. Get a little dirty at times. I want to see that mean streak from Keldrick Faulk, because I feel like when that mean streak starts, the Hulk comes out of him, and he can just overtake the guy in front of him. He can beat the guy in front of him and make a play. Keldrick Faulk primed for a huge year. Got to be excited about having 15 on the field. The interior of the defensive line is one that I've been vocally concerned about up until just recently. That was a part of the team that I felt like you had to get. I thought multiple guys in the portal. Brought in one. You still may bring in others, but after this latest, I know it's silly, but after this latest, roster update where they updated the heights and weights and showed how all the gains that these guys made, I'm not necessarily concerned as much about the interior as I was. I mean, you return Bobby Travis, who played the most of his career last year, and he's up to 6'4", 305. I mean, that's NFL interior lineman size right there. Malik Blocton, the true freshman who carved out a niche for him game 1 in some of those dime set pass rush situations, has put in the work. Now he's over 300 pounds, 6'3", 301. I mean, those are 2 guys that are not just dudes you want to go in there, sit down, and eat up space. These are 300-pounders that got motors that can move. And then you bring in Dallas Walker, who is a monster. 6'3", I think 335, 327, 6'3", 327. I honestly was a little bit concerned when I saw him. Maybe the first time I saw him, I thought maybe he was a little bit overweight. He's lost a good bit of weight since he's gotten here. Really got his body into a very, very good, powerful, state. 6'3", 327. He can be a plugger in the middle, and he can be a factor as well. People don't forget, he signed with Texas A&M. Like he was very sought after out of high school. And it was just a situation maybe similar to like an Amaris Williams, where I'm just behind some guys. I'm going to go find a place to play, and maybe I'll jump back up. And that's exactly what happened. I'm feeling so much better about the interior than I did previously. Feeling so much better about the interior. I still think maybe you look to the portal. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I feel so much better about what Auburn has to offer on that interior, I think that could be something that could be – I think they have a chance to be good. I really do. I think they have a chance to be really good. You got your X factor on one side. You got a Faulk on the other. You got some hotshot freshmen coming in that we're going to talk about in just a second. And you got some beef on the interior. I like the potential of this defensive line. I really, really do. Freshmen. I think you got a couple of freshmen that could crack the rotation, especially on the interior. Jourdin Crawford, who I've said will have the best career out of anybody of that class. 6 foot, over 300 pounds, 320, 320-ish. Malik Autrey, probably the best SEC size already at 6'4", like 320. Maybe, I think he actually may be bigger, 6'4", 6'5", 339. So he's, that's big. That's big time. That's like offensive tackle size. He may need to get a little bit more in shape. Maybe need to get, once this strength and conditioning really kicks in, he'll probably trim down to, somewhere in the 320, 325 range if he's dedicated. I think he could be a factor. He's got a little bit of physical gifts over Jourdin Crawford that if he can match Jourdin Crawford's motor, if you could put Jourdin Crawford's motor in Malik Autrey, you'd have something. I think you already have something there, but you could have something super special. I mentioned those 3 guys, returning guys on the interior. 3's pretty thin. Defensive linemen get banged up. They're getting leaned on every single play. They're absorbing contact every single play. These guys may better be ready to buckle their chin straps and get out there because they may get the opportunity. And I think they have the size right now, and I think they have the mindset to where you could probably put them out there and not miss a ton. I think they're going to be good players. Darrion Smith already is turning heads. I just wonder about he looks really good from a body perspective, from what I understand. Very similar to Amaris Williams. Where does he fit in? Those pass rushing defensive linemen, not your edges and your bucks, whatever you want to call them. The defensive linemen that you look at, the interior guys that you look at that can get after the quarterback. Auburn doesn't have a ton of those. Darrion Smith could carve him a little niche there. 6'2", 264. Again, very similar to Amarus Williams' size. And I think he has the athleticism to maybe not be quite as good, but he could be, just a step behind, in Amaris. I think he could be somebody that can crack the rotation. Antonio Coleman, mega talented, another mega talented freshman, super explosive. He's got some work to do with his body. He's got to get bigger. He came in a little bit smaller than I think most expected, 6'1", 247, as brought in being an interior guy. He's got some work to do there. But if he can get his body right, he may be the most explosive one out of the bunch. That's legit. That's not sunshine pumping. His first step is incredible. His first step off the ball is SEC level. Do we need to bring in another one from the portal? I know I just went through the whole depth chart. If you got Keldrick on one side, you got those guys in the middle. You figure out a way to work in Amaris on the other end. I think you may still need one other guy. Because like I said, pass rushing interior guys, I think Auburn may be lacking a little bit there. So if you can go find a guy that's, another 6'2 plus, 6'3, 6'4, 270-ish pound guy that's got some experience, a little bit older guy, I think it would be worth taking for competition, for just having that seniority in the room. Find you a lower level guy that's looking to make a step up. They can get after the quarterback a little bit, but it's big enough to be able to hold his, set the edge, be able to hold his gap. I think you could see Auburn maybe take a shot at one in the portal. I think that would be, probably be needed. Of the few positions that I think Auburn needs to go get, I obviously think linebackers one, and I could see an interior defensive end that could rush the passer. I think that could be another spot that Auburn looks at bringing a guy in from the portal. What do you think about the X factor? What do you think about Amarus Williams? How should Auburn use him? Am I crazy? Am I crazy about him needing more reps? Does he need to play a different position? What are your thoughts on Amarus Williams? I just think if they can figure out a way to utilize him more, you could take this defense to a whole nother level. We complain at times about only rushing 3 or this, that, and the other. Well, if you're only rushing 3, but you're rushing Amaris Williams and Keldrick Faulk, might be a little bit scarier than no hate to anybody on the roster, but it might be a little bit scarier than a Keldrick Faulk and maybe a Zykevious Walker. I mean, Amaris is just a better athlete. Zykevious has his role, and Zeke's very good at what he does. Pass rushing is not really his thing. I think this defensive line has the bones, has the making of being one of those Auburn, dominant SEC defensive line groups that you're used to. You just got to figure out how to get everybody on the field. You got to figure out how to utilize them. That's what spring's for. And I think they have a shot to be really, really good. Am I crazy? Let me know what you think. Drop your comments, your thoughts below, and I'll try to reach out to, I mostly do, to every single one. And we'll have some fun. So, guys, I really thanks for listening. Don't forget to go to mybookie.ag. Use that coupon code for that big 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Get ready for March Madness. It's coming like a freight train. You got to be ready for it. Guys, I really appreciate it. We'll be back again tomorrow. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.